Good morning. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. It's Friday, January 26th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
The fate of a Senate border deal fading after Donald Trump tells Republicans not to bargain. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
The state of Alabama carries out a first-of-its-kind execution. I'm Clayton Neville.
Former President Donald Trump's briefly testified in the defamation trial against him. I'm Jackie Quinn.
The RNC could make a formal declaration about Donald Trump's candidacy next week. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
On Wall Street, the S&P 500 index and the NASDAQ 100 each open at fresh record highs. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
6 people have been found dead in a remote area of the Mojave Desert. I'm Donna Warder.
The U.S. and Iraq expect to start formal talks soon on winding down the mission of the American-led coalition. Sagar Magani, Washington.
All ahead on America in the Morning. Negotiations over a potential Senate border package has hit another snag. Our John Stolnis reports from Washington.
In a private meeting with Republican senators on Wednesday, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell reportedly told his colleagues they are in a quandary over moving forward as Trump has been lobbying Republicans in Congress to kill a border deal with Democrats in an effort to keep the issue front and center during the presidential campaign. Republican Senator Mitt Romney says this is a problem that needs to be solved, not punted.
I think the border is a very important issue for Donald Trump, and the fact that he would communicate to Republican senators and congresspeople that he doesn't want us to solve the border problem because he wants to blame Biden for it is really appalling.
And Republican Senator Thom Tillis also angry at Trump's meddling.
We are here. We've been elected. We have election certificates. When you have an opportunity to make this country safer, you take it and you don't play politics.
The border deal is holding up the passage of a national security package supplemental, which would also send funds to Ukraine and Israel. On Fox News, Senator Josh Hawley was asked if Trump's involvement means the deal is now dead on arrival.
I hope so. It should be. If it's not dead yet, it should be dead. I mean, there is absolutely no reason to agree to policies that will just further enable Joe Biden.
However, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is still keeping the faith that negotiators can finish over the weekend and reach a compromise.
Now, as we've seen over the past day, getting a bipartisan agreement on the supplemental is very difficult. But I am glad that now negotiations are continuing to move forward. Of course, there are still issues that must be settled, but negotiators will work all weekend in an effort to get this done.
Even if the Senate passes a deal, it is unlikely to even be brought to the floor of the House, a fact not lost on Republican Senator Rick Scott.
We should not be voting for anything as Republicans in the Senate if the Republicans in the House don't support it.
A Harvard Caps Harris poll out this week found 35% of registered voters ranked immigration as the nation's top concern. 2 in 3 voters said the problem is worsening under President Biden, but 3/4 want the two sides to make a deal to increase border security. John Stolnis, Washington.
A first-of-its-kind execution was carried out in Alabama. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports the death row inmate was declared dead 22 minutes after the execution began.
Lawyers for Kenneth Eugene Smith called the execution by nitrogen gas experimental and argued to the U.S. Supreme Court that the execution of their client was unconstitutional. The High Court, though, denied a request to stop the execution earlier this week. States across the country watching the Alabama case closely. Department of Corrections leaders in Oklahoma spoke with the Associated Press.
At this time, it's been in practice, and we want to see how well it works, how fast it works, and how efficient it is. So I think the nation, as far as correctional entities, are watching this to see how it's done.
Members of the media and family members of Smith's victim witnessed the execution.
The state of Alabama started carrying out the execution of Kenneth Eugene Smith by nitrogen hypoxia at the William C. Holman Correctional Facility.
John Hamm with the Alabama Department of Corrections.
Smith was executed for the 1988 capital murder of Elizabeth Dorleen Sennett in Colbert County. Smith was pronounced deceased by physicians at 8:25 p.m. Central Standard Time.
He said Smith's reaction was as expected.
It appeared that Smith was holding his breath as long as he could, and then there's also information out there He struggled against his restraints a little bit, but there's some involuntary movement and some agonal breathing. So that was all expected and is in the side effects that we've seen or researched.
Smith's last words: tonight, Alabama causes humanity to take a step backwards. I'm leaving with love, peace, and light. I'm Clayton Neville.
Trump takes the stand in his defamation trial. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Benz has 3 words those who wish winter was over want to hear.
Temperatures will surge for this afternoon across much of the southeast through the mid-Atlantic and the interior northeast as warm air surges northward. This will be especially true for where the sun can break out across portions of Virginia through Maryland and central Pennsylvania, where temperatures will resemble more mid-April-like conditions, but it will be a stark contrast where temperatures will be much cooler near the coast, especially from Philadelphia eastward to New York City, where clouds could ruin the spring party and keep temperatures in check. Rain will be an issue once again across much of the southern U.S., so not as widespread with regards to heavy rainfall and no risk for severe weather here for today, though there is a risk for some locally heavy rainfall, mainly around New Orleans on east through Biloxi, Mobile, Alabama, and into the Florida Panhandle. This can bring renewed flooding concerns across this region. There will be more rounds of heavy rain heading into tomorrow. That could include the risk for severe weather across much of the southern U.S., including places like Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. Look for bits of lingering rain and drizzle across parts of the Great Lakes, including Wisconsin, much of lower Michigan, as well as northern Indiana and northern Illinois. Some more rain will break out as the day progresses across northern Texas and Oklahoma. That will include a bit of snow as you head back towards the central and southern Rockies. Otherwise dry across much of the northern plains and dry as well across much of the desert southwest. So a new storm will crash into the Pacific Northwest, bringing heavy rainfall for coastal Oregon and Washington state. That's the weather across America. In Washington, D.C., very warm with some sun at times, high of 72. Mainly cloudy in the Twin Cities, high of 39. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Benz.
Follow us everywhere you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Former President Donald Trump took the stand and very briefly testified in the defamation trial against him filed by a former columnist in New York. Correspondent Jackie Quinn reports.
Former President Trump testified for several minutes, telling the court that he just wanted to defend himself. He said of columnist E. Jean Carroll, "She said something I considered a false accusation." But the judge told the jury to disregard that remark. Trump was heard in the courtroom away from the jury, saying he didn't know E. Jean Carroll, something that he said repeatedly on the campaign trail as well.
This is a person I have no idea until this happened, obviously. I have no idea who she was, and nor could I care less.
Carroll seeking over $10 million in damages, testifying that Trump ruined her reputation after she accused him of sexually abusing her in 1996 in the dressing room of a Manhattan department store. The judge has already instructed jurors they must accept the findings of a previous jury that agreed with Carroll that she had been defamed. I'm Jackie Quinn.
The Republican National Committee says they could make a formal declaration about Donald Trump's candidacy next week, despite only one primary and one caucus so far being held. Lisa Dwyer reports.
The Republican National Committee is expected to consider a resolution to declare Donald Trump the party's presumptive 2024 nominee, even though only 2 states have voted. A candidate needs 1,215 delegates to formally clinch the nomination. If approved, the measure would further solidify Trump's control of the party and its operation at a time when Nikki Haley is still competing against Trump for the GOP nomination. Haley raised $1 million after her second-place showing in New Hampshire. Calling Haley a bird brain, Trump says that anyone donating to her campaign would be permanently barred from the MAGA camp. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Tesla warns of lower sales. American Airlines CEO weighs in on Boeing jets. Those stories when America in the Morning continues after these messages. We're back. This is America in the Morning. Despite a better-than-expected economic report, layoffs this week alone have crushed jobs in the tech sector. Microsoft handed out nearly 2,000 pink slips at their gaming division, and cuts at Amazon, Google, and Spotify were part of the 24,000 jobs eliminated this week at tech companies. The media eliminated hundreds of positions this week. 5% of the workforce at Condé Nast lost their jobs. 8% of the staff at Business Insider are preparing their resumes. 1 in 5 workers in the newsroom of the Los Angeles Times were cut loose, and almost everyone at Sports Illustrated were told they'd be let go this week. Let's find out if there's any more promising news on Wall Street with CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a winning day yesterday for stocks, unless you own Tesla. Those shares tanked, but the S&P 500 index closed at yet another record high. Its 6th day in a row, also a record for the NASDAQ 100. Shares of T-Mobile and Intel fell in after-hours trading yesterday on disappointing quarterly results after the closing bell. Tesla shares dropped 12% yesterday, down 26% year to date after it warned of weaker sales.
Look, if you are an investor and you listen to that call, there's very little in there that gives you optimism heading into 2024. Tesla shares' worst day since 2020.
CNBC's Phil LeBeau. Paramount Global's CEO announced job cuts. Paramount owns Paramount Movies, CBS News, and cable channels. There are reports Skydance Media may be working to buy the company and take it private. Meantime, Microsoft announced nearly 2,000 job cuts yesterday. The U.S. economy growing at a blistering pace, 3.3% last quarter. That was the first read on fourth quarter GDP, gross domestic product. Some are calling this a Goldilocks economy. It's just right.
Continually throughout the year, we have had strong growth, and in this case, stronger growth than expected, and inflation numbers that have been coming down. Look at the inflation numbers. They remain at 2%. Inflation continues to be well behaved. Period.
CNBC senior economics reporter Steve Leisman.
Jessica, what's the latest with the Boeing MAX 9 jets?
Both Alaska and United have been cleared to allow their fully inspected 737 MAX 9 jets to fly today after the door panel blew out of one owned by Alaska 4 weeks ago mid-flight. American Airlines doesn't own any MAX 9s. But the company reported strong quarterly results, and then we asked the CEO if he's taking the Boeing MAXs out of the fleet planning.
Look, we have 20 MAX 8s that are planned for delivery this year. And on that front, they're already in production, so I don't think that we'll be impacted by this. But look, when it comes to Boeing, they've got to get their act together. They have to produce a quality product. It's just essential.
The American Airlines CEO also basically did a commercial selling plane tickets during the interview.
It's going to be a busy summer, busier than last year, and we're set and primed, ready to go. And look, I think the time to buy is right now for travel. It's going to be a busy year.
American Airlines CEO Robert Isom on CNBC. On today's watch list, we get the latest on inflation. It's the PCE, personal consumption expenditures. Earnings are coming from American Express, Norfolk Southern, and Colgate. New in theaters, MGM's The Underdogs, and in some theaters on Sunday, MGM's The Wizard of Oz, back on the big screen to mark the film's 85th birthday.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, a formal agreement will determine the future of the U.S. military stationed in Iraq. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues this Friday. 6 people found dead in a remote area of the Mojave Desert. Correspondent Donna Warder reports.
Authorities in Southern California say 5 of the bodies were found Tuesday night off a highway outside El Mirage as San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputies responded to a request for a wellness check. The 6th body was found Wednesday morning. Spokesperson Mara Rodriguez.
This is a very remote desert area. And for that reason, CHP Aviation Division accompanied us to the call and were able to help us in locating the scene.
Audio courtesy of KTLA. Authorities could not say how the 6 died or whether they had been shot. I'm Donna Warder.
A Southern California man was convicted of murder Thursday in the road rage shooting death of a 6-year-old boy who was killed after his mother made an obscene gesture to another driver. 26-year-old Marcus Anthony Ariz of Costa Mesa faces up to 40 years to life in prison when he's sentenced. Ariz was with his girlfriend on a state highway when he was apparently cut off. When the mother of Aiden Leos showed Ariz the middle finger, he pulled out a gun and fired into her car. One bullet struck the 6-year-old as he was being taken to kindergarten. The U.S. and Iraq expect to start formal talks soon on winding down the mission of the American-led coalition formed to fight the Islamic State group. Washington correspondent Sagar Magani has an update.
There's been a continuous U.S. presence in Iraq since the 2003 invasion. And even after combat forces left, thousands more troops returned to help fight the Islamic State group. But their presence has been controversial in Iraq, which has an increasingly influential faction of Iran-aligned militias and politicians. Some militants have attacked U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria for what they claim is American support for Israel's war in Gaza. And the U.S. has struck back, drawing Iraqi complaints about a violation of its sovereignty. Iraq's prime minister said this month there is no longer justification for the coalition presence in his country. Sagar Magani, Washington.
America in the Morning for Friday, January 26, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
A bipartisan Senate deal to pair border enforcement measures and Ukraine aid faces potential collapse. Ed Donahue, Washington.
In Minneapolis, prosecutors have announced second-degree murder charges in the fatal police shooting of black motorist Ricky Cobb II. I'm Jennifer King.
A bill in Florida would ban anyone under 16 from using social media. I'm Clayton Neville.
Trump White House official Peter Navarro has been slapped with a prison sentence for defying a House subpoena. Norman Hall, Washington.
Microsoft continuing with massive layoffs after acquiring Blizzard. I'm Chuck Palm.
In a case of life imitating art, the new Roadhouse remake has started a fight. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. It may be hard to conceive, but yes, we are at the last Friday of January. And with the National Weather Outlook today, here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Benz.
We do have yet another day to talk about the threat for heavy rain across the southern U.S. Today, that stretches from the Gulf Coast, from Louisiana, eastward towards the Florida Peninsula, and northward into Mississippi and Alabama, areas that have been hit hard over the last couple of days. We'll see more rounds of rain here through this afternoon, then a little break into tonight. Then this pattern will recharge again heading into Saturday. Rounds of heavy thunderstorms will cross the area on Saturday, bringing the threat for not only flooding, but the risk for severe thunderstorms as well, stretching from Louisiana, Mississippi, eastward towards Georgia. Some rain likely to be around to start the day for places like Washington, D.C., through Baltimore and Philadelphia, even New York City, though as the day progresses, many of these areas will dry out as moisture shifts northward towards New England, where the sun can break out across the mid-Atlantic and the interior Northeast this afternoon. Temperatures feeling more like March or April. Temperatures could reach the lower 70s for the nation's capital by this afternoon. To the north, though, rain mixing with snow across northern New Hampshire through much of Maine. Rain and drizzle will linger across much of the Great Lakes as well, through much of lower Michigan and into central and southern Wisconsin, including northern Illinois and Indiana. Another round of rain starting to develop across portions of Texas and Oklahoma. This will be the next storm for the weekend. That will sweep from west to east across the country. Snowflakes this morning across the central and southern portions of the Rocky Mountains. A new storm crashes into the Pacific Northwest, delivering periods of heavy rainfall through this afternoon. Could cause localized flooding near the coast in Oregon as well as Washington State through this afternoon and into this evening. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Benz.
Listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. A bipartisan Senate deal to pair border enforcement measures and Ukraine aid faces potential collapse. Ed Donahue explains.
Mostly young men and large numbers of terrorists, the United States is more vulnerable from inside terror attacks than at any time in its history. Biden is allowing people from prisons and jails He's allowing people from mental institutions and insane asylums. Silence of the Lambs. Hannibal Lecter, remember?
This week, Senator Langford and several colleagues continue their work to finalize the most substantial border security policy in 30 years. This agreement would come not a moment too soon.
Work has been going on for months. The U.S. has run out of money to help Ukraine.
To those who think that if President Trump wins, which I hope he does, that we can get a better deal, you won't. You got to get 60 votes in the United States Senate. So to my Republican friends, to get this kind of border security without granting a pathway to citizenship is really unheard of.
Utah Republican Senator Mitt Romney says the talks have slowed down because of Donald Trump's likely opposition.
The fact that he would communicate to Republican senators and congresspeople that he doesn't want us to solve the border problem because he wants to blame Biden for it is really appalling.
Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says the stakes are high.
We know that if Putin prevails in Ukraine, the consequences for Western democracy and for the American people will be severe and haunt us for years.
A senator who was at a Republican luncheon says Minority Leader Mitch McConnell still personally supports pairing the border and Ukraine.
Former President Trump has indicated to senators that he does not want us to solve the problem at the border. He wants to lay the blame for the border at Biden. And the idea that someone running for president would say, please hurt the country so I can blame my opponent and help my politics is a shocking development.
Ed Donahue, Washington.
More is being learned about the incident involving a Minnesota state trooper who's been charged with murder in the shooting of a motorist who allegedly tried to drive off during a traffic stop. Correspondent Jennifer King reports.
We want justice. We're not asking for the world. We're just asking for what's righteously ours.
That's right.
When we think of situations like this, it's a problem for our country. And once we come together and figure this out, this is where it starts in Minnesota again.
Body camera footage from the July 31st traffic stop on Interstate 94 in Minneapolis shows cop arguing with troopers and refusing to get out of his Ford Fusion.
Every time y'all talk about, some stuff to talk about, y'all can take.
According to police, the car's lights were out and they discovered Cobb was wanted for violating a protection order. As Londrigan began opening the passenger door, the car begins moving forward. And the trooper fires 2 shots from his handgun, striking Cobb twice.
A young black American that wanted the best for his children and looking out for his family. He was just really wonderful, kept his head on, very strong-willed, strong-minded, and full of the Lord.
At a news conference, Cobb's mother, Naira Fields Miller, says her son was gunned down for no reason.
I stand in solidarity and for justice for my son.
Londrigan faces charges of second-degree unintentional murder, first-degree assault, and second-degree manslaughter.
This is not a black and white thing. No matter who want to make it a black and white thing, this is not a law enforcement versus citizen thing. This is a right versus wrong. This is a violation of the laws that set place in this United States and in this state.
I'm Jennifer King.
Follow-up to a story we brought you yesterday. A Russian news agency says flight recorders have been found from a plane that Russia says crashed with several dozen Ukrainian prisoners of war on board, an incident the Kremlin is blaming on Ukraine. Here's the latest on the story from correspondent Karen Shamas.
The memorial service takes place in Orenburg, Russia, for the pilots who died after a Russian military transport plane crashed in a border region near Ukraine. The plane crashed in a huge ball of fire in a rural area in Russia. Authorities said all 74 people on board, including the POWs, 6 crew and 3 Russian servicemen, were killed. Ukraine's president has demanded an international investigation into the episode.
Russia bears full responsibility for the lives of Ukrainian prisoners of war. We insist on conducting an international investigation to establish all the circumstances of this incident.
Russia has repeatedly attempted to shift responsibility for the tragedies of this senseless war of choice as though it is the victim and not the aggressor. It bears repeating that the Kremlin bears full and ultimate responsibility for starting and continuing this war.
Russian officials accused Kiev of shooting down the plane with 2 missiles and said the prisoners of war were headed for an exchange. Despite the discovery of the transport plane's flight recorders, there's slim hope that the circumstances of the crash and the Russian allegations will be clarified. The war has often featured conflicting accusations used as ammunition in the bid to sway opinion at home and abroad. I'm Karen Chamas.
Prosecutors are telling a Michigan jury that the mother of a then 15-year-old high school shooter who murdered 4 of his classmates should be found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. Following proceedings, Correspondent Jackie Quinn.
It's believed to be the first case in the nation in which a parent is charged in a mass shooting at a school.
Jennifer Crumbley didn't pull the trigger that day, but she is responsible for those deaths.
Prosecutor Mark Keast says Jennifer Crumbley could have prevented the killings of 4 students at Oxford High School if she had told school officials who called her for a meeting that her son had a gun like the one he had drawn a picture of in a classroom.
When someone with that kind of information looks at this, the unimaginable becomes predictable.
Defense attorney Shannon Smith says prosecuting the mother does not serve any purpose.
Attempting to put a Band-Aid on problems that can't be fixed with a Band-Aid.
Teacher Molly Darnell described being shot by a masked gunman.
I realized he's raising a gun to me.
And felt a burning in her arm.
I had texted my husband, "I love you, active shooter." And then I started feeling blood dripping down my arm.
The shooter, Ethan Crumbley, was sentenced last month to life in prison. His father is also charged. I'm Jackie Quinn.
When we return on America in the Morning, layoffs continue in the tech sector and banning 16 and unders from social media. One state's proposal after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. The Republican-led House in the Florida legislature passed a bill this week that would ban anyone under 16 years old from using social media. Correspondent Clayton Neville is following the story.
The bill's headed to the Florida State Senate. House lawmakers passed HB 1 in a 106-13 vote. Republican lawmakers in Florida backed the bill they say protects against the dangers of kids on social media.
They're just taking advantage of kids growing up.
It's like a digital fentanyl, and even the most plugged-in parent or attuned teen has a hard time shutting the door against these addictive features.
The bill would require social media platforms to stop minors from creating new accounts and do away with existing accounts of users under 16. Age verification would be required, and there's no exception for getting permission from a parent. Representative Randy Fine is a co-author of the bill and spoke with WESH 2 News.
It's having terrible side effects with self-worth and suicide and depression, and we're trying to protect kids from the addictive elements and the harmful elements of these products.
Representative Anna Escamani also spoke with the TV station and said that she voted against the bill that saw support from Republicans and some Democrats.
For parents that give their children permission, does it give an avenue for that? And we have heard concern from especially LGBTQ+ organizations who are worried that cutting off young people from support spaces online.
If the legislation passes the Senate and is eventually signed by Governor Ron DeSantis, it could take effect this summer. I'm Clayton Neville.
Donald Trump joined a legal bid to disqualify Fani Willis from pursuing Georgia election fraud charges against him because of claims that she had an affair with the lead prosecutor in the case. Trump's lawyers are claiming that Willis, the Fulton County District Attorney, improperly appointed the person they allege is her romantic partner to lead the case and also took vacations with him. They're also accusing Willis of making racially charged extrajudicial statements about the case. The filing came amid intense scrutiny of the relationship between Willis and Nathan Wade. CNN is reporting that both could be subpoenaed to testify about their relationship, and if that has tainted the case against the former president and others being prosecuted. Trump White House official Peter Navarro has been slapped with a prison sentence for defying a congressional House subpoena. Correspondent Norman Hall reports.
Peter Navarro, who was convicted of contempt of Congress for refusing to cooperate with the congressional investigation into the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, was sentenced to 4 months behind bars. Navarro served as White House trade advisor under then-President Donald Trump and later promoted Trump's baseless claims of mass voter fraud in the 2020 election.
The United States versus Peter Navarro has turned out to be a very important landmark constitutional case that is going to resolve important issues about the constitutional separation of powers, as well as the integrity, efficiency of presidential decision-making.
The sentencing judge said Navarro had chutzpah for saying he accepted responsibility for his actions, while also claiming the case was politically motivated. His lawyers are appealing the sentence and conviction. Norman Hall, Washington.
More layoffs announced by tech giant Microsoft. This time it's part of their newly acquired gaming division. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's tech news.
Microsoft announced on Thursday they will be laying off an additional 1,900 employees at the Activision Blizzard and Xbox units this week. The latest cuts in technology sector have extended massive layoffs over the past 2 years into 2024. These cuts represent about 8% of the overall Microsoft gaming division and will mostly happen at Activision Blizzard. Blizzard President Mike Ybarra and Chief Design Officer Alan Adam are also leaving the company, while a previously unannounced survival game Blizzard has been canceled. This comes just months after Microsoft announced closing a $69 billion deal to acquire Activision, boosting its street cred in the video game industry. Microsoft hoped to acquire landing Call of Duty to better compete against game companies like Sony. A spokesperson from Communication Workers of America said Microsoft's layoff announcement made clear that when you work at a successful company in an extremely profitable industry, your livelihood is not protected without a voice on the job. For more tech news, visit allthetoptech.tech. I'm Chuck Palm.
Friday Sports is in with America in the Morning's Robert Workman.
Connor McDavid scored twice, Calvin Pickard stopped 27 shots, including a penalty, and the Oilers blanked the Blackhawks 3-0 for their 15th consecutive win. That's just 2 away from the NHL record. Bruins stopped the Senators in overtime. Boston tied with Vancouver with 69 points to lead the league. Lightning lit up the Coyotes. Nikita Kucherov, a goal and 2 assists. He retakes the scoring lead with 83 points. Stars, Canadians, Red Wings, Hurricanes, Predators, and Blue Jackets win. NBA, the Celtics steamrolled the Heat, shooting 64% from the floor, including 55% from long range. Pacers got a triple-double from Pascal Siakam and ended the 76ers' 6-game winning streak. Knicks toasted the Nuggets for their 5th straight. Kings nipped the Warriors. Harrison Barnes had 39 points. Timberwolves held off the Nets. Jazz jolted the Wizards. Before the game, Washington elevated Brian Keefe to interim head coach and moved Wes Unseld Jr. from the bench to a front office job after 2.5 years. Only the Pistons have a worse record than the Wiz at 7-37. And the Lakers bounced the Bulls. LeBron James, one of 4 LA starters to get at least 20 points on the day he was named to his record-setting 20th NBA All-Star team. NFL Conference Championship games coming up on Sunday. First, the Chiefs and the Ravens for the AFC title, then the Lions and the 49ers for the NFC crown. The winners go to Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas. The coaching carousel took an unexpected turn on Thursday as the Falcons hired Rams defensive coordinator Raheem Morris as their new head coach, turning away from the presumed favorite for the job, Bill Belichick. Another NFC South team, the Carolina Panthers, chose Bucs offensive coordinator Dave Canales as their new head coach. He's the 7th different man in that job since David Tepper bought the team in 2018. As for Belichick, 15 wins away from passing Don Shula atop the all-time wins list, he may be a long shot for the 2 remaining coaching vacancies this winter in Washington and Seattle. That's Friday Sports.
We'll catch you Monday. There's Robert Workman. A movie about fighting starts a fight. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Singer Melanie, known for the song Brand New Key, has died in Central Tennessee at the age of 76. More on her passing from entertainment correspondent Margie Zaraletta.
I got a brand new pair of roller skates. You got a brand new key. I think that we should get together and try them out, you see.
Melanie was probably best known for Brand New Key, but she also had hits with Look What They've Done to My Song Ma and Lay Down Candles in the Rain. She was one of only 3 female solo acts to play Woodstock in 1969. Melanie said in a 1994 AP interview she was so petrified of the crowd she had an out-of-body experience.
The people really were warm, and I just felt this great flow of, it's okay, kid, you know.
Melanie kept recording and performing into the 2010s.
Look what they done to my song. Well, it's the only thing that I could do half right, and it's turning out all wrong, Ma. Look what they done to my song.
I'm Archie Zaraletta.
Fisticuffs, the act of fighting or boxing with bare hands. There were plenty of it in the movie Roadhouse, and now the remake of the classic film seems to be starting a fight. Kevin Carr explains.
After years languishing in development, MGM has finally remade the 1989 Patrick Swayze fisticuffs flick Roadhouse. But as the subject matter suggests, the release is not going to happen without a fight.
I want you to be nice until it's time to not be nice.
Director Doug Liman, who made The Bourne Identity, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and Edge of Tomorrow, is livid over Amazon's decision to send the movie directly to streaming.
It'll get worse before it gets better.
This week, Liman authored a guest article on Deadline explaining he signed on to the film before Amazon bought MGM, and he was assured that his movie would be released in theaters. Liman is so upset that he plans to boycott the film's premiere at the opening night of the South by Southwest Film Festival on March 8th.
It's my way or the highway.
Ironically, the original Roadhouse had an unspectacular theatrical run in 1989, grossing only $30 million in the U.S. It was the at-home market that made it a cult classic. VHS sales and rentals, as well as high rotation on cable, helped the film gross more than $200 million worldwide.
So you like to fight? You ever win?
No one ever wins a fight. Lyman's Roadhouse remake stars Jake Gyllenhaal as a former UFC fighter who gets a job as a bouncer at a dive bar in the Florida Keys.
It takes a lot to get me angry, but when I am, I just can't let go.
UFC champion Conor McGregor also stars. I'm Kevin Carr.
That's our show this Friday, January 26, 2024. America in the Morning is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.